Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us and happy Monday. Welcome to another Quick Start seminar, navigation and trip planning, focus oriented, whatever you want to call it. My name is Mike Tischer. I'm the host and organizer of these seminars together with Robbie Monsma and Maddie Miller. Thanks to them as always. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do that. We're going to have a special treat tonight. We're going to have part 2 of our voyage into the Garmin universe, if you will. Garmin for beginners. I see in the participant list we have a few folks that I think attended the first one. Barbara Auden is back, and she will tell you all about how to download or transfer data from the Garmin and put it on different places like Google Earth or Topo, and also how to use the Garmin software Basecamp, which is used for display and transfer of data. So it's going to be very interesting, and will complement hopefully number 1, which was all about how to operate your Garmin device in the field and at home. If you haven't watched that, that's okay. The second one is separate as far as I understand. And I put the link to the first one in the chat box so you can watch it afterwards if you like. If you have watched the first one and you've played around with your Garmin device, we'd like to hear from you and tell us how it went. So you can put a comment in the chat box if you like and see what was easy, what was hard when you went out there with your new Garmin device or the Garmin device that you have for a while, and tried some of the stuff that Barbara was discussing in the first session of this 2-parter. Before I hand it over to Barbara, I want to let you guys know that we have a couple of seminars in the works. One will be about the CMC website, how to use it for trip planning. I think we all agree that the website is a little bit hard to navigate at times, so we'll hopefully can clear some stuff up and help you find some resources on the website that are really, really useful, I think, that you can use before you go out, and also to obviously sign up for trips. Then we're going to have a seminar about CMC publications. There's tons out there. Some of you might already have bought some of those publications and use them in the field. Others might not be aware of all the publications that we have. I thought it would be interesting to bring somebody in who talks about what's available, how to best use it, or how people use it in general. Who determines what gets published, and who's going to write all these things, and how much of that money actually goes to the CMC. So those are all questions that we're trying to answer in that seminar. And then I think we're going to also have one seminar that's either talking about the Colorado Trail specifically, or the Continental Divide Trail, and how to plan for it, how to do it in segments, how you plan for it if you want to do it all at once, how long it will take, how to navigate while you're on the trail. So we'll have somebody come in and talk about this. Also note that besides this navigation trip planning quick start seminar, there's a general quick start seminar that talks about everything hiking. And Cindy Lair is doing that, and that's a monthly thing. And the next one is on August 13th, and it deals with the best flat iron scrambles. So if you're into scrambling, make sure to sign up. I'm sure it's going to be good. If you have any topics that you want us to discuss here in our quick start seminar, please let me know. Send me a note. If you have anybody, or maybe yourself, who wants to give a talk about a specific topic that fits into our framework of navigation and trip planning, please let us know too, and we'll see if we can make it happen. All right, with that, I think I'm going to unshare this here and hand it over to Barbara to tell us all about Basecamp and Google Earth and how to use it with Garmin. Thanks, Barbara.
You're welcome. Do people see me now when I talk?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back if you were in the first presentation, and welcome to my second presentation. This will be about Basecamp and managing data with your Garmin device and the Basecamp program. And I used PowerPoint last time, but tonight it will be sharing of screens. I have 4 screens that I need to share about, so I will be hopping in and out, back and forth between screen shares to show you what I know about Basecamp. So the first screen I'm gonna share right now is from Garmin. I don't know if you know that Garmin website was down for about 4 or 5 days. They had a hack and somebody was trying to ransom $10 million. And fortunately, they came back up just today. And fortunately, I had all my questions answered. I always speak with Garmin before I do this, and I had all my questions answered a couple weeks ago. I had just a few more questions, and I had them answered today. But anyway, your Garmin device, your unit is bare bone. You have to add maps to it to use it for hiking. Garmin makes maps for all kinds of different people. And what you want is a hiking map that has good detail, like any paper map you would use. Terrain, land and water features, trails, dirt roads, summits, all that. You want to be able to get that into your Garmin. So the bottom line is that you need a map in your GPS. Now Garmin, fortunately, makes these maps. And the selection of map that you would want to buy would, well, it would depend on your location that you want to hike in, your needs, and your cost. And these maps that Garmin sells all interface with the Basecamp software. Now, there are free online maps that you can get, but that's not for this discussion at all. It's more advanced. It's for the more technologically savvy person, and that's not me. I'm just a normal user, which is good for you and comfortable for me. So what kind of map? When you're looking for Garmin maps, you go to the website, you click on Outdoor Recreation, Outdoor Maps, and click Shop Outdoor Maps. And remember, they make a lot of maps for a lot of people. So in this category over here, you'll want to do a little bit of research and see what kind of map you want to buy. Some Garmin devices are pre-programmed, which means the map is already in the internal memory. But the best maps for hikers are these Topo 24K maps. That means they have a 1 to 24,000 scale. There's a quick brief highlight here. Terrain, contours, searchable point of interest, and turn-by-turn directions. So what you want to do when you're looking for a map is compare them. And you want to look for a map that has good topography, which you know, but you also want to look for a map that has a searchable option. That means you can look for land features like mountains, rivers, or lakes, or you can look for points of interest such as campgrounds. And you also want a map that is routable, meaning that you can create a route in Basecamp using points along your line of travel. Not all of those topo maps are routable. So the ones that I use are the Topo 24K. Perhaps you already have these, but if you don't, I'll just give a quick review of them. You can see that it's a hefty price tag. It's $99.99 for a 24K Southwest map. Now, you have internal storage on your Garmin device, and any user data that you create in the field, and that means tracks or waypoints while you're hiking, that user data will automatically be saved to the device's internal memory. And my older model, which is a 62, has about 2 gigabytes available for me for user data. And the newer models can hold up to 8 gigabytes. Some of that is reserved for software in the device, but you will have more internal memory on that newer model. So any user data goes to the internal memory, but any map download needs to go to a micro SD card. They cannot go to the internal memory. They have to go to a micro SD card. The only exception to that is, as I mentioned earlier, a pre-programmed device, and in that case, the map is on the internal memory. So the Garmin maps come in 2 formats. One is a download, in which you would download it to a micro SD card that you have purchased. The other format is a micro SD card that is already pre-programmed. It's a little chip, a little card. Garmin sends that to you in the mail. If you are purchasing the micro SD card that's pre-programmed, you'll just get a little package. But if you're purchasing a download, then you are going to need Garmin Express, which is listed is right over here is the link for it. You will need Garmin Express to get that map transferred from your download into your device. Now, what kind of micro SD card should you buy? Garmin's only tested 2 of them. They've tested a SanDisk and a Kingston card. The speed class on the card that you purchase should be a class 4 to 10. And any Garmin handheld device can hold up to a 32 gigabyte card. You don't need to buy one that big because you're going to learn how to move your information. But to store maps, you probably will need a 4 gigabyte at a minimum and maybe an 8 if it's a larger map. Do not use a high-speed card. Garmin recommends against that. It won't work. So the bottom line is that you need to purchase a micro SD card to store your map information. Now also, you can transfer some of your user data or all of it onto your micro card, and I'll show you how to do that. So now I'm going to, when you're looking for maps on the Garmin website, also if you scroll down, you'll see that there's an overview of the map. You can look for the details in here that you're interested in purchasing with your map. If you look at the requirements, it will tell you what your download requirements are and also what your micro SD requirements are. So for example, for this map that I've selected, it should say the size on here. I don't see it on here, but I think it's a 4 gigabyte card. Either way, when you purchase your map, Garmin walks you through all those details. Oh, it says it right here. It's a 4 gigabyte size map. So you would need to purchase at least a 4 gigabyte micro card. And when you purchase your maps, Garmin walks you through every step, every bit of the way. The other thing you'd want to confirm before you purchase, because it's $99.99, is the area that it's covering. So the Southwest map covers Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. And lastly, you want to make sure that your device is compatible. So you would click on compatible devices and just scroll down to make sure that your unit is listed there. And then, as I said, you would need, when you decide to make your purchase, part of that process will be links to Garmin Express. So I'm going to stop this share screen, and I'm going to show you what Garmin Express looks like. And we're lucky because Garmin is back online, so I can show you everything on it. So my device is connected. It says it right here. Barb's GPS is connected. This box will tell you if you're up to date or not. If you're not up to date, you'll have a sync button that you can click on and your device will be updated. If you click on Tools and Content, you will see that the first page that you get is info, and it tells you the model number, serial number, software version. If you have a problem with your device and you call Garmin, they will want the serial number and the model number. And also there's a link there that says get help with this product. If you click on that link, it will take you directly to a Garmin support site. If you click on utilities, you have a direct link right here to the owner's manuals, a quick start and a much larger manual. This is where you find the maps that you purchased in the purchased option. So I have purchased in my past 12 years with Garmin, I've purchased a 24K for the Northeast because I come from New England. I've purchased a 24K for the Southwest because now I live here in Colorado. And I purchased a 24K for the western part of the country because I've traveled. These buttons on the right, the cloud with the arrow, is where you would start the installation process to get the map from Garmin Express into your device. And obviously your device has to be connected by a USB cord to your computer. Now, when you can either set up an account through Garmin Express when you're making your purchase, or you can set an account up if you go to garmin.com/express. You can Google that, I'm sure, and find it. But when you set up your Garmin Express account, you have to make sure that you use the same email address that you will use when you purchase your maps. And then you have to add your device to your Garmin Express account. You get walked through all of that. And then when you have this Garmin Express account, you use it to register your device, update your device, download your purchased maps, and or get Garmin support. So now I'm going to stop this screen share. Give me just a minute, please, for that. And I'm going into Basecamp now. Get to the good stuff. You got your maps. Now, what does Basecamp do? It's a free software download from Garmin that allows your GPS unit to transfer maps and data to and from your computer. What can you do with Basecamp? You can plan and manage trips. You can transfer information between your computer and your device. You can create, edit, and organize your data, such as routes, tracks, and waypoints. And if you have a newer model of a Garmin device and you have bird's eye imagery or satellite imagery, you can use your Basecamp to access that information. And the same thing if you have a device that can do geotagged photos, you can also use Basecamp to access that. I don't have either of those. I have an old unit, so I can't explain anything about that to you. At the top, you will see a help button. If you click on help, you see that you have access to Basecamp help. You have access to welcome or an introduction to Basecamp. There's a link for video tutorials. There's a link again for Garmin Support Center and a link to Garmin forums. And anytime I've had to contact the Garmin Support Center, I will say that the chat line and the call line have both been very, very helpful. What else is on this Basecamp bar? If you click on Basecamp over on the left and you click on Preferences, you have some options that I just want to point out. The first one is general. You want your measurement unit to be set to US, which is miles and feet. You want your heading to be set to true north, only because the map on your Basecamp will align with the true north on a paper map. On your position format, you want this to be set to a decimal format, which is HDDD.DDDD, as opposed to the degrees, minutes, and seconds. And the reason I say to set it to a decimal setting or format is because when you enter coordinates into Basecamp, you get coordinates from another source. If you want to enter them into Basecamp, it's much easier to type in. And I will show you how to do that later. And then the datum should be set to WAGS 84. That is the most recent and most current map data available. And that's what Garmin recommends now. You will notice it on some, well, on USGS maps and some older maps, they use NAVD as their map datum. It's an older version, but there are only minor differences. So you may see differences in waypoints or tracks or other locations on the map. And that's why, because there's more recent datum. Now, if you click on display, and those differences, by the way, are minor. They're not very big at all. They're minor. And that's also why you need to know map and compass skills first. Now, if you click on display, you can see that you can change your icon size, your label size, and the width of your track. You might be interested in changing those. If you click on routing, you just need to make sure that you select the hiking profile. And when you select that hiking profile, that will dictate how Basecamp creates a route for you, because it will look for trails or dirt roads and keep you off the main highways. Now the other, I'm going to close out of that. The rest you can explore at home on your own. Something else in Basecamp that you can do is there's a quick link to shop for Garmin products, and there is a quick link here to check for updates. So now, there are lots of ways, there's more than one way to access or select a function, and it really depends on what you have highlighted in this left sidebar. So I'm going to highlight, I'll talk more about my folders in a minute, but I'm going to highlight my Elbert Northeast Ridge in my 14er calendar, and then I'm going to show you some of these function buttons at the top. And remember, they are dependent upon what you have highlighted in your left sidebar. So if I highlight File, you'll see that I can create a new list or a new folder. I have the option to import or export in and out of my 14er folder. And I can export selected user data. That means I can export just that one track if I want to. If I click Edit, these give me lots of options for managing my Elbert Northeast Ridge track. I can copy it, duplicate, delete it. I can create a waypoint, and I can also get information on my track. We'll do that later. If I click on my transfer button, I have the option here to send or receive information from my device. There are multiple ways to do that. That's one way. If I click on Find, you can explore these at home, but this is what I want to show you, the link to locate coordinates. If you click that, this is where you would enter your decimal coordinates. We'll do that later. If I click on View, this gives me all my map viewing options. I can zoom in or out, and I can use the plus or minus key on my keypad, and that's what I use often for zooming in and out. I'm going to bounce back and forth a little bit on this one. If I click Show Map Coordinates of the cursor, my cursor will have map coordinates. I don't like having that all the time, so I'm going to go back and hide my map coordinates of the cursor. Back to view. If I scroll down and click on show grid, I get latitude and longitude lines. Back to view, I'm going to hide the grid because it's just going to get in the way tonight. Back to view, I'm going to scroll down and hide my labels. All those numbers and labels have disappeared. But I'm going to turn my labels back on. I'm going to click show labels. There's one more thing that I'm just going to point out to you. I know it does not show with a screen share. There's a tab here to show map navigation controls. If I click on that, a small box opens up at the bottom and it just gives you a quicker way to control your map navigation with zooms and changing the compass orientation, all of that. But I know it doesn't show up on screen share, so you can access that at home to experiment with it. Now I'm going to skip over tools for a minute and go to maps. Back in the day, when I bought my Garmin products, I was able to purchase a CD that had maps on it called Topo US 2008, and I was able to download them into my computer. So Topo US 2008 resides in my computer, which means I can open up Basecamp and I can look at my Basecamp without having to connect my Garmin device. But that's old and that's outdated and that is no longer available. So you can't do that unless you're like me, a dinosaur with Garmin. And some of you may have it, some of you may not. So now your options are to buy these, the additional maps that I showed you. And I'm going to show you the difference. So this is a Topo 2008 map. It really does not have a lot of detail. When I click on my 24K Southwest map, all of a sudden I have much more on here. I have marshland here. I have dirt roads over here. These red lines are other trails. And another big difference is that public and private boundaries are more distinct. I'm going to go back to my 2008 and show you what it looked like on my old map. It's just a straight boundary down to this waterfront without much information. But this is what your 24K map will give you. Much clearer public and boundary lines, much more waterfront icons, dirt roads, marshlands. So it does give you a lot of information on that 24K map. And let's see what's next. So now I'm going to go back to the toolbar up here. Over to the left, you have other options here to send and receive data. This is a device transfer. That's your second option for moving information. These are just task assistants. You can look at them at home. Again, this is the activity profile that you selected. It's hiking. Now, on these map tools, I like to use this hand because it allows me to move my map around quickly. I can also use the arrow buttons on my keyboard to do it, but I like to drag and move things around like that. Another thing I can do is grab a waypoint like Mount Elbert here, and I can move it. If I don't like where it's positioned, I can move it. You get a message, do you mean to move this item? Yep, I'm going to move it there. But I really just moved it to the wrong spot, so I'm going to move it back where it belongs. So I like that option that you can move waypoints, because sometimes you think you'll have a waypoint in one area and then you find out that it's really not, it's in a different spot. Now if you use this zoom map tool, you can just click and zoom in quickly, get much more detail. I'm going to zoom back out with my keyboard. If you select this arrow and you hover over certain points on your map, it will give you more information. This tells me that this is an intermittent stream. Well, it's right next to that dirt road there. It's Half Moon Road and it's in the Mount Massive Quad. If I hover here, this tells me it's Mount Elbert, 14,400 feet high in the San Isabel Forest. If I hover over this small alpine lake, it tells me it's 12,240 feet in the San Isabel Forest. I just want to grab my map and move it and show you something else. Going back to my pointer and selector tool, if I hover over this tiny little blue dot there, it will tell me that it's Placer Mines at 9,600 feet. This is Lily Pond. This over here is the Mount Elbert Forebay Dam. So that gives you a lot of information about your map just by hovering over it. The next thing I'm going to show you is this ruler. This measures distance and gives you direction. So if I'm on Mount Elbert and I want to go down here to Bull Hill, well, I'm going to make a little stop right here. So I'm going to click there to start it. My ruler tells me that it's 0.6 of a mile in a bearing of 202 degrees to get to that plateau. If I wanted to go down to this alpine lake over here, it tells me that it's 1.13 miles in a bearing of 94 degrees. So you can use that to also plan your information. Now, this is a waypoint tool. So again, let's say I want to take a little trip from Mount Elbert on this trail, which is Black Cat Cloud, to this little plateau and then go down to Bull Hill. So I'm going to put a waypoint right here because I'll navigate to that in the field. And when I click on that, it comes up labeled as Black Cloud. It comes up with a blue flag for a symbol. I can change that to anything I want. So I think I'll change it to a red flag. If I click on Advanced, it gives me the coordinates. And when I close out of that, I've created a waypoint here that I'm interested in, and it's also populated into my 14er folder over here on the left. Now let's say I want to create a route from Mount Elbert to Bull Hill. I'm going to click on my routing tab up here. And remember, Basecamp is going to select what they think is the best route for you based on your hiking profile. I'm going to click Mount Elbert and enter that as my starting point. And I'm going to click Bull Hill and enter that as my ending point. And guess what? I don't like the route that Basecamp gave me because it follows this trail, Black Cloud. It follows this trail all the way down to this juncture. There's another trail that goes up here to the Fidelity Mine. The trail stops, so then it's just a straight line to Bull Hill. And over here, it tells you that this trail is 5.7 miles. So I don't like that trail. I want a shorter route and I want to go off trail. So I'm going to click the little feet over here that lets me draw a track. This is going to be much better. I'm going to start on Mount Elbert. I'm going to click my way down because I know that's the trail. I'm going to be at my waypoint for Black Cloud. I'm going to descend this ridge down to this little col down here. I'm going to climb up just a little bit to Bull Hill, double click, and I'm done. And so now we have a nice gray track line labeled as track over here in my 14er folder. And now it tells me that this distance is 1.7 miles, and then I have to climb maybe 240 feet. I'll descend about 1,000 and climb 240. So I'm going to click on this track now. I'm going to double click and I'm going to go to Get Info. And I'm going to name this as Elbert to Bull Hill. And I'm going to change the color of that track to something that I can see a little more. I'm going to make it dark blue. So now it's a nice dark blue track here, and my track is populated into my 14er folder. We'll talk a little bit more about tracks later on. Right now, let's get back to this menu up here, this menu bar. What else can you do? If you click on search, let's say I want to search for something. So I know that Mount Massive is right across the dirt road from Elbert. So I want to look at information on Mount Massive. So I'm going to type in Mount Massive. And my search box will open up. It will show you points of interest, addresses, and user data. Again, my 14er folder is highlighted, so it will show me user data in my 14er. But all I'm getting is that Mount Massive golf course. That's not where I want to go, so I need to refine my information. I'm going to type in Mount Massive. When that happens, All points of interest on your 24K map that match Mount Massive will come up. I'm going to click on the summit. Move my map down a little bit so you can see it. Number 1 is the Mount Massive Trail. Number 2 is the summit. Number 3 is the Mount Massive Wilderness. So when I click on Mount Massive, there's a flag here, which you know creates a waypoint. So I'm just going to click that. And now I've created a waypoint for Mount Massive that I can use on my device. And it's also populated into my 14er folder, so I'll be able to find it on my device. Now let's try something else. I'm going to close that out. And I want to search for something else. I'm going to search for Elbert Creek because I know I entered a waypoint for that recently. Now, all of this Elbert Creek information is in that 24K map, but I also entered Elbert Creek as user data in my 14er folder. I set a waypoint when I was there, and I set that waypoint and I edited it. So I edited in the notes to say it's $20 a night. I've since learned it's $10 a night if you're a senior. It's first come, first served, and it's a nice campsite. So any data that you have entered will pop up in a waypoint when you have searched and found it like this. I'm going to close that out. And I'm done searching. How do you close out the search bar? You click on these little binoculars down here in the corner, and that closes out your search bar. Now let's look at the sidebar over here. The first thing to look at is your Garmin device. I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to double click on it. And you see that your options include receiving information, safely ejecting it, or getting information. When you click on Get Information, it will show you what your internal storage is on your device. Of course, it also has the quick links to the manual and the unit number and the serial number, but what I want to check is my internal storage, and this is where you check it. So I've only used 1.8 gigabytes out of a total of 1.94. Remember, it holds 4, but the remainder of that is for a lot of the software in the device. So I have plenty of room for internal storage. And again, this is where your user data in the field will go when you're recording tracks or waypoints. Now, no name is my micro card. It's a 32 gigabyte. When I click on that, I have the same options. I want to see what my storage capacity is on that. I will click on Get Info. And again, this is showing me that I've used 18 gigabytes out of about 32 gigabytes. What do I have on my card? I have all 3 of my maps loaded onto my card and a little bit of user data, not a lot. The next section is on my computer. Now, same thing when I click on my collection. If I double click on that, I can send all the information in this to my device. That's one more way to transfer data. And I can also click on Show Contents on a map. So I'm going to show you 12 years worth of contents on a map. It's not really useful. I've been to Alaska, Northwest, West, been to New England. There's a little dot up there in Iceland. There's a little something down here in Chile. And there's a little tent over here in Nepal. That's not really useful. So then I'm going to click on View a Detailed Data List. And this is where my data from the last 12 years is stored, anything I've put in here. So these are all my waypoints. These are all my tracks from everything I just showed you. It's a ton of data. And it really means that I would never be able to find anything that I wanted to find quickly. So that's why I make folders. So now I have all my Colorado folders up here. You can see what they are. Colorado Trail, 11, 12, 13, 14ers. It helps me organize it, and I can find things quickly when I want them. And I'm using the 14er folder tonight only because there's hardly any information in it. If I click on US, all the states that I've hiked in are there with my data is organized. And if I click on international, it only shows a few places, but that's because maps are not always available through Garmin when I travel. And I don't want to carry the device if I can't put a map on it. It's just more weight. So I'm going to go back to our Northeast Ridge. I clicked on Elbert Northeast. I'm going to click Show on Map. And the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is to import tracks into your Basecamp. So I'm going to stop this screen share of Basecamp. And I'm going to access, give me 1 minute to find it, please. Going back to my open web. And I actually have, I have all these pages already loaded up here, and I'm already logged in if I have a membership there. Things are quicker and faster if you make an account. A lot of people like to use AllTrails. I don't use it a lot, but I'm going to show you how to use it to import a trail. And we're going to look at Mount Yale, and I have not been there. So I'm going to type in Mount Yale in the search box, and I get, oh, what happened? I'm going to click on Mount Yale Summit Trail. There it is. When you click on More, you have an option to download a route. So I'm just going to click Download a Route. Now, GPS tracks, I told you earlier, have a GPX file extension. Google Earth tracks have a KML extension, but we're looking for GPX tracks. So I'm going to keep that as my selection and download. And it's already here. It came in as Mount Yale Summit Trail. The next one I'm going to go to is CalTopo. I don't know if you use CalTopo. There was a presentation through QSS a couple months ago. It's online. I like CalTopo. I'm going to type in Mount Yale here, do a search, and there's Mount Yale. I'm going to create a track and import that. I'm going to click on Map Layers. This is very quick going through CalTopo. I'm going to click on 2013. I'm going to click Add New Object, add a line. I'm sorry, that didn't. Oops, let me close this out. Something is open that should not be open. 1 second. So back to add a new object, click line. I don't know what's going on here. I'll just say okay. Oh, there it comes. This is what I was waiting for. It was just slow. So when you click add a line, you can see that these yellow trails on CalTopo open up. I'm going to single click down here, create this track. And turn right at the ridge and double click on Mount Yale. Most of this track came out right, but this part in here didn't fall completely on the right track, but it's close enough. So this is a track that I've created just now on CalTopo with a little bit of trouble. It's usually easier. I'm going to click this edit button over here, and I'm going to label this one as Yale CalTopo so we know where it comes from. Click OK. Then I'm going up here to export that track, and I'm going to export it as a GPX. Do I want to send all this information? Yes, I do. I'm going to export that. And that came in as export.gpx. Now I'm going to go to the 14ers.com site. I'm going to look for Mount Yale, which I already know is over here. I'm logged in. You have more information when you're logged in to with an account. I'm clicking on routes over here. I get to select the route I want, and I want the one that has more of a moderate risk factor, not considerable. So I'm selecting Mount Yale Southwest Slopes. And when this opens up, you see that you have a GPX route and a GPX track and a KML file. I want the GPX track. I'll click on that. I agree to this. It's already downloaded as a Yale 1 track, GPX, and I'm also going to download a KML file from here to show it to you in Google Earth later. I agree to that. And that came down as a Yale 1.kml. So this is a KML file, the others are GPX. That's how easy it is to get a track from 14ers. And then I'm going to go to one that's a little more complicated, Peak Bagger. And I am going to do a search. I'm going to search this site for Mount Yale. Sometimes people put tracks on Peak Bagger, not always, but sometimes they do. This is what I want, Mount Yale at peakbagger.com. Now, this is why I wanted to show you this site. This elevation is 14,196, but look, this says 14,2003. It's using the NAVD map datum. It's close, it's not a problem. But this is what I wanted to show you, the coordinates. So the first set of coordinates are degrees, minutes, and seconds. The second set of coordinates are decimal, and the third set are UTM. So I'm going to write down these coordinates for Yale, and I'm going to show you how to enter them later on. Now we're going to scroll down this site. There's a lot of information on here, but what I'm looking for are selected trip reports. Anybody that's put a GPS track has noted a GPS track. So I'm going to click on this GPS track. A map opens up, and there's a link right here. Download this GPS track as a GPX file. That's what I want to do. And that came in as Mount Yale 2020. So now we've imported 4 different tracks and coordinates from Mount Yale from the web. I'm stopping this share now, and I am going to show you how to import them. So we're going back to Basecamp. All right. I want them to go into my 14er folder. I'm coming up to File. I'm selecting Import into 14er. They all went to my downloads, and here they are. I have 4 GPX tracks and 1 KML. So I'm going to use my Shift key and highlight the 4 GPX tracks that I want and click Import. And they're already in my folder, in my 14er folder. They're alphabetical, so I have to look and find them. I could have renamed them, but this is probably how it will go for you until you figure out how to rename them. So the first one, let's start with the Yale Summit because we know that came from All Trails. So I've highlighted it. I'm going to double click on it and click Show on Map. There's a nice track up Mount Yale. The next one I'm going to highlight is Yale Cal Topo. That's the red one. And remember, I told you in here it didn't correctly follow the trail, but it essentially seems to be sitting right on top of the first one. The third one I'm going to highlight is Mount Yale Southwest Slope. So we have 3 tracks so far that seem to be almost identical. And then we have this Mount Yale that came from Peak Bagger. And I did that intentionally. Look, it's a different track. So you have different options on how you want to get to Mount Yale. This track, let's look at some information on it. It's got red arrows going up, red arrows going down, so it's clearly a round trip, in and out track. Down here it says it's 11.8 miles, and the ascent is 5,457 feet. Let's compare it to the others. This Mount Yale Southwest Slope is 4.2 miles with an ascent of 4,277. Obviously, that's one way. The Cal Topo we know is one way. It clocked in at 3.9. And Yale Summit is at 8.7, so that's also a round trip. So we'll select this route over here, and that's what we'll hike. Now, let me show you how to enter coordinates. Remember, you go to Find, click on Locate Coordinates, and I'm going to enter them right here in that decimal format. It's 38.844173, comma, minus 106.31376. And you have 2 options. One is to create a waypoint. One is to show on the map. Let's show it on the map. There it is. It's right where it's supposed to be, so we're happy with that. We like those coordinates. We're going to create a waypoint just by clicking that. It populates as Mount Yale. It's been assigned a little mountain as a symbol, and it's already been put into my 14er folder. So I'm going to close that out. Now, the other thing I'm going to point out, remember this is the 24K Southwest map. We have 3 Yale tracks here sitting on top of each other, 1 Yale track coming in from the east. This red and gray line is an old track that's in the 24K map. It's not updated. What you purchase is what you get, and that's the track you get, and it is what it is. It's obviously not correct. So you cannot always rely on what is in your map, in your Garmin for hiking, because if you took this trail, who knows what kind of trouble you get in. We don't know. But everybody's using this Yale track here, so we'll stick with that. So that's important to know that these 24K trails are not always identical to something you would download from a good website. Now, how do you export tracks? Say you have a friend and you want them to go on Yale with you, and you want to send them to track because they like to look at it in their mapping program. So let's send them this Mount Yale Southwest Slope. Highlight that, and you have several ways of sending it. You can, oh no, I'm sorry. That's for sending it to your device, what I just did. You want to export it, so you go up to File, and you have your options right here to export. If you click this one that says Export 14er, remember your 14er folder is highlighted. So you'll send your friend the entire folder. She might not want that. So you would select Export your selected user data. You'll just send that one track. Click on that. You can rename it if you want. We'll just call it Mount Yale. And then you're going to put it in either your desktop or into your downloads. I like to put things that I'm mailing on my desktop because they're a little easier to find. And you're going to stay with your GPX format. You do have a choice, but you're going to stay with GPX. And then you would just click Export. So that'll be on my desktop now. It's on my desktop. I want to send it to my friend. I open up my email. I start an email for her, and I just attach that. When she receives the email, or when you receive an email with a track, you click on that attachment, download it, save it to either your desktop or your downloads. And then when you open your Basecamp, you do the same thing for importing that we just did with all those Yale trails. So that's how you would export that and send it to a friend. Now, to organize your data, we have all these Yale trails over here. I don't want them cluttering up my either my Basecamp or my device. So again, I like this track, Mount Yale Southwest Slope. I'm going to put it into my Garmin device. You have multiple ways to do that. You can double click as I did before and just click Send to Device. You get an option. I hope it's just that track. I'm not really sure. And because I'm not really sure, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to grab it and just drag it up and drop it into my GPS. Now, I told you can put user data also on your micro SD card. So I'm going to grab that and drop it up into No Name, which is my micro SD card. Then I also want to send the summit from Mount Yale. I'm going to grab that and send it up to my GPS. And I'm also going to put that into my micro card because I think I want to save my user data on that. Then when you click on your Garmin device, there it is. It's in your Garmin device. If it wasn't in your Garmin device, it would not show up. I'm going to click on No Name, which is my micro card, and it's in my micro card. So you do have several ways to transfer data. And as I told you, I'm not sure if that would send, let me go back to Mount Albert. I'm sorry, I mean Yale. I'm not sure if I send to my device. I'm not sure if it would send all of my tracks in that folder or just one. So that's why I did the drag and drop. You can experiment with that. You can do the drag and drop to send it, and you can use these device transfer buttons up here. Now, the last thing I want to show you is how to safely eject your device. You can double click on Garmin and inject it that way. And I don't think my next option will show. I can click on Finder, which I don't think is showing up. I can click on my Finder and eject my device from the Finder sidebar. And also my Garmin devices pop up on my desktop so I can eject them from my desktop. Just make sure that you eject it safely. And this is really the quickest and easiest way to do it. Double click on that and just eject. I won't do that now, but that's what you can do to eject it. So I'm going to stop my screen share of Basecamp, and now I'm going to open up Google Earth and show you how you can drag in a KML file. This is Google Earth. Click on File, click Open. My downloads have opened again. I'm looking for my KML file. I highlight that, open that, and look at this. It's just flying right into Google Earth, which I love. And so now there's the track that we downloaded from one of those sites, put into Basecamp. We also downloaded it as a KML. And the first thing I like to look at on Google Earth is parking and access. So what I'm seeing makes me very happy. I've not been here before. I see a nice paved road and I see a nice paved parking lot. And I see that the trail leaves the back of the parking lot. Over here, I see a dirt road and there may be some dispersed camping sites in here. I would also investigate that on Google Earth. I'm gonna make that a little bit, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. You see that the track heads up the valley, starts to climb, zigzags up, pops out above tree line, goes up to the ridge, turns right, and here's the summit. Now, there's more you can do. I'm going to turn off that Yale track. I'm going to zoom in and show you that you can see the trail. So if you can't find a trail or a track on any of those other sites I showed you, you can go to Google Earth. You can look around and you can actually create a route or a trail on Google Earth. You can save it, you can export it, and then you can import it into Basecamp, which means you can import it into your Garmin device. So there are a lot of good ways to get information. And I am going to stop the screen share of Google Earth and just close out a little bit. So why would you use Basecamp over a navigational device like Gaia or CalTopo? I love both Gaia and CalTopo. CalTopo they both show private and public land boundaries. They both show slope shading, which is important for winter months with avalanche terrain. They have great topography, good land features. You can create a track. You can create and print a customized map. It's less expensive than purchasing a Garmin map, although I do have a subscription to CalTopo because it does provide a little bit more superior service. So why would you use Basecamp? You can open Basecamp up on your computer and it's much easier to plan and organize a trip. You can organize and edit your data so that, after 12 years, you can find exactly what you want. You can share all trails and all waypoints with your friends. You can also import a track from Gaia or CalTopo for data management. You can import that into Basecamp. So if you didn't really want to buy that 24K map for $99.99, you could still use, you have to buy something to put in your Garmin, but you could look for a map that was not quite as detailed, and you could still import information from Gaia and CalTopo and still put that into your Garmin device. And also with Basecamp, you can manage the storage on your unit. You can't do that in any other way. You can manage that with Basecamp. And then in the field, how do you combine this? You blend the use of your GPS with your paper maps, with your map and compass, and you gather data along the way. And I think it's just one more tool in your safety box that keeps you safe in the mountains in all conditions. And that's Basecamp. Do we have any questions?
All right, thanks, Barbara. We have a couple. Somebody wanted to know how you can modify a track that you downloaded in Basecamp.
How can you modify it?
Yes, like the waypoints, for example, have a waypoint every quarter mile. Can you do that?
I'm confused on the have a waypoint every mile.
Quarter mile.
Let me reread the question. Can
Yeah.
you show me how to modify a downloaded tracks? Are you talking about waypoints or breadcrumbs?
I asked the question. I've talked with other hikers who will download a track, and then, in their opinion, it will be a track that's so loaded with, now I don't know the right word here to use, waypoints or breadcrumbs, but they'll have way more than they want in their GPS when they're using that track in the field.
I think I know what I think I know. So let me just say this. You saw me download CMS for 14 years and then put that into Google. If I try to convert my GPX track in Basecamp, you can convert that actually to a KML, and you can export it to your downloads, and you can try to open that track in Google Earth, and that will come up with 1,000,000 waypoints, which is why I did that. So I think through experience, you'll find a better way to download or convert tracks. And sometimes they don't work. Sometimes you do get too many waypoints and not really breadcrumbs. I think that's what your question is. I don't like all those waypoints either. And I actually don't know how to convert them. So in this case, I would say if you wanted to look at a track on Google Earth, then you would have to download it from a site like 14er. And I know what you're saying because I've gotten some tracks that have a lot of waypoints. There might be some options in there to convert them, but I'd have to experiment with that. That's a little more advanced. If you're asking me, how do you edit a track that has breadcrumbs? So say, for example, you're hiking, you record it, you turn your device on and you're in the parking lot for 10 minutes. And then before you've even started, it tells you that you've done like half a mile and 500 feet. If you wanted to edit out those errant points that give you actually incorrect data at the end of your hike, you just delete them. So you would click on your track, you would click on info, and you would delete those errant breadcrumbs. And they tend to cluster, they really kind of cluster, depending on how you have your Garmin device set up. If you have it on auto record, you might want to try switching it to distance for recording, because it will only drop a waypoint after a certain distance. If it's on auto, it'll drop a waypoint all the time. So if it's on auto for recording, you get a cluster of waypoints that are errant. If you switch that tracking method to distance, you'll have a cleaner track. You won't have as many clusters. You won't have mileage and elevation that's inflated at the end of the day. But if you do have that cluster, you can just click on info. That track information will open up and you can just delete those errant points.
Okay, I think it was the waypoints.
Yeah, I've seen some tracks come in as waypoints, and I think maybe that's a source problem.
What he seemed to refer to, but I never learned about, was some kind of setting where you could go into the detail of a track or a GPX file, see all those waypoints, and reset so that every 100 feet or some pre-established, he said he sets his for every, trying to remember now, 100 yards or something like that, because then he doesn't have so many waypoints to deal with.
I think he's talking about the way he records his track in the field.
Somebody was commenting in the chat box about converting it to a route, and then apparently you can set the number of waypoints when you convert.
Okay.
I haven't done that, so I don't know how that works. If you can specify the distance, or if you can just say do 20 points or something like that. But maybe that is an option to get to a specific number of waypoints.
I
Good
haven't
suggestion, whoever made it. I'll give that a try.
given that a try. The best thing is to try and use it.
Yeah, and somebody else was commenting on that there might be a limit for the waypoints, I guess, for a track or for a route, maybe 200 or so. Maybe Garmin doesn't allow you to have more. I mean, definitely breadcrumbs, I think, is probably more, but waypoints, why would you want 200 waypoints?
Right. And I don't do a lot with waypoints on a track. In fact, I never do that. Breadcrumbs, my recorded tracks usually have 900 or 1,000 breadcrumbs. Like you can have a lot of breadcrumbs on your track. So I would look at the track settings, and then I suppose, well, I don't get tracks that have waypoints instead of breadcrumbs. I see one question here. How can you tell if it's routable? I think you're talking about the maps.
That was all the way at the beginning, yes.
Yeah, and that's actually a very important question, because you want it to be routable. Not all of those topo maps are routable. If they are, you'll find that detailed information when you click on the overview. It will say whether or not you can create a route, whether or not it's routable. So that's how you tell. You have to look at the detailed description of the map.
I've got a question. I'm curious, is there, because on my Garmin, I've put on not a Garmin map, but a third-party one way back when, like 6 or 7 years ago. And I think that website is not around anymore. But do you know of any other website that either for cheaper or for free allow you to put on maps that are useful for hiking, that detailed enough for hiking?
There's one I've heard of called Free Online Map. And I looked into a little bit, but my experience, remember, I'm not technologically savvy with those free online maps, and I don't use them because what I do is simple and easy for me. I've got my routine down. But I did click on, I looked at that briefly. I remember that the QSS, or somewhere in the navigation videos, there's a video on an eTrex that talks about free online maps. So I would recommend searching for that.
Yeah, I think Dave Litke did one about GPS in general, and I think he mentioned about those third-party maps. Not in great detail, but I think at least some pointers for folks if they're interested in that, because I personally find $100 is pricey for a map. I mean, if you use it every week, then that's fine, right? But if you don't, then it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And especially if that is, as you said, I think that it's not like updated every month.
Nope.
Those maps.
Yeah,
I have a Garmin also for my car, and that map, that street map, is updated on a regular basis. But I don't think the hiking maps are.
They're not. And unfortunately, I don't think that there's a map on Basecamp right now. I only have that 2008 topo map because I purchased it back in 2008 as a CD, and I was able to load it into my computer. So I don't even know if you would be able to use that Garmin if you didn't put a map in there. Now, so I would check Dave Litke, is that the name you mentioned? That is,
Litke, yep.
I recall that name, and that is about free online mapping. But the other thing I did notice is that if you import your files, they go into a filing location in your computer, but they're not named, they're only dated. And so it seems to me it would be a lot harder to manage that data. But there are free online maps, and like I said, that's more advanced. So.
We have a couple of comments coming in. One, Hector has posted a link about getting free maps, or a guide at least of how to install free maps and tracks. And the hiking guy, I think I've read that guy's website before, and it's pretty good. And then apparently in CalTopo you can resample maps or tracks. I'm sorry.
You can resample.
So that's good to know.
CalTopo tracks are good.
Yeah, it's just a lot of choices out there, and unfortunately, it's not one program can do it all, right? So if you want to do something specific, you might have to deal with 1 or 2 or even 3 different programs before you get what you wanted.
And then throw in some navigational apps on top of that.
That's right.
My husband and I do CalTopo, Gaia, and my Garmin. That's it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody works just with one.
No.
You have a couple on your phone, you have a Garmin device, you might have a couple of things that you check at home, different websites that are different from your apps on the phone. So it's a mix. It's really a mix. All right, I think we went through the list of questions. Any other questions that folks have? Looks like we're all good.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Barbara. This was really great.
Thank you.
And it complements nicely that first part, and we're going to make it available to everybody in a few days together with your slide deck if you're willing to share that. And then I will send out a note to everybody and let you guys know where where you can find it. I'll post the links in the email.
Okay.
With that, go ahead.
I'll say one more thing. My husband and I were in the Gore Range group, and we're actually starting to lead more hikes during this COVID time. So if you've been in either Garmin presentation and you want to learn more about your Garmin on the trail, you can look for us. We're leading hikes.
Awesome. Yeah, now that we can go out again, it's yeah, I mean, it's really great. So and that's the best way to test those things, right? I've been the last few times I've tried CoTrax, and I've tried some other software that I've never used before, just to see how they compare, because that's really what it needs to work for you.
Yes.
And that's why we have all those different webinars, because we basically now had one for each one of those apps, and we unfortunately can't tell anybody this is the one to use. It's personal preferences, what your emphasis is on collection of maps, on being able to post photos when you're out and you know, and shoot them with your camera, with your iPhone, for instance. So it just depends, and the only way to figure that out is if you guys can just go out and test it. But hopefully with those webinars we can give you a jump start, and then use your phone, use your Garmin device if you have one, and see what you like better. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks so much. I've reposted the link to the first video again. Hopefully, for those who can't see it, it should be all the way at the top. The first entry in the Zoom box should be a link to the YouTube for Barbara's first Garmin webinar. But I will also, when we have the second one online, I'll post the first one again so you can watch it back to back, binge watch it, so to speak, and then go out and hike. And if you have any questions about this, let me know, and I can answer those, or I'll shoot an email to Barbara and ask her. I don't know.
Email me, no problem.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Have a good night.